So today I want to share some personal stories that might not be very popular, just like some of my other videos. To be honest, I don't have a strong sensitivity to gender issues. I realized that my background in Hong Kong shaped the way I look at gender in a very different way from many Western contexts. A lot of gender conversations are huge online. Pronouns, titles, representations just weren't part of my world growing up. In this video, I want to share how my mother tongue Cantonese, my upbringing in Hong Kong, and the media I grew up with, and even my experience going to a girls' school, all shaped a different sensitivity toward gender compared to many people experience in the Western context. Hi, this is Cloris. How are you doing? I was raised in Hong Kong and have been living in Germany for 7 years, currently based in Munich. So first thing first, the language. Cantonese, a language that doesn't even do gender. I grew up speaking Cantonese, and Cantonese basically doesn't mark gender. We use a personal pronoun ko for he, she, they, and even it. Even for a dog, a book, we all share the same personal pronoun. For example, 佢係咪嚟緊啊? Is he or she on the way? For example, 佢食咗嘢未? The personal pronoun can literally refer to a guy, a girl, or even a dog, a cat. The third person plural pronoun they in Cantonese is 佢哋. Basically, is 佢plus they, which also doesn't include any gender. So this is a third person plural pronoun that we use for everything, for all genders. So our pronoun system is basically for all the people and all animals. So my mother tongue is Cantonese. I grew up bilingual, both Chinese and English. For Chinese, I mean Cantonese and Mandarin. For spoken languages, before I started learning foreign language, I had no idea about genders in nouns because in my mother tongue there is no masculine or feminine form. Growing up, we also learned English, and for English nouns there is also no gender. We use the for everything, but for example in Spanish there are already el, la. And then later on I learned French, and then there's le, la. And then when I learned German, der, die, das. So it was really overwhelming back then when I first learned the genders in nouns. But now I sort of see the system behind this and kind of be able to distinguish the gender based on the suffix of the noun or something. So we have no gender adjectives, no gender endings, no gender job titles, and we don't even have to conjugate the verbs. So for Chinese characters or Japanese kanji, it would be very difficult for foreigners, but the grammar behind might not be as complex as European languages. Even in Mandarin, where the written pronoun look different, like ta, which are pronounced exactly the same. So even when people speak Mandarin, gender still doesn't exist in the sound. So in my mother tongue Cantonese, even in written form, there is just one ko, which we use for all third-person pronoun. And this character actually made of two parts, like the human on the side, and I can't really explain the other component, but based on this component on the side, it's just human. No gender is involved. That means throughout my childhood, when I speak, I never had to think about whether that person is a he or she. The personal pronoun just came out from my mouth before my brain could even process the gender. That's why I still always make mistakes when I'm speaking English. When I'm narrating something about the third person, I tend to make a lot of mistakes mixing up he and she, as well as the present tense conjugations. For example, I could mix up like he, she, and have, has. So sometimes I will intentionally speak slower to avoid mistakes and not to confuse people. And then a few years ago, I realized it's not just me making this mistake, but also another friend from Hong Kong making the same mistake, because I met a mixed couple a few years ago. The guy is from Germany and the lady is from Hong Kong. So the guy complained that the lady always makes up he and she. And then I immediately say, oh, me too, I always make the same mistake as well because we just don't have gender in our pronouns. And then the lady said, see, not just me, she's also making the same mistake. I have my degrees in linguistics and literature. I feel so ashamed when I make grammatical mistakes. So growing up in my hometown, I never got corrected based on pronouns because gender doesn't exist at all. So when I first heard of they addressing non-binary people, I was pretty surprised because for me it always feels plural, addressing more than just one person. But for sure, I totally respect that choice. So in everyday conversation in my language, it's just normal not to mention gender. dress. For example, when I told my mom that I'm going out with a friend, then she would ask, is the friend a boy or a girl? So later on, when I saw some people discussing pronoun usage or gender titles, it felt like a very different world from where I grew up. Another missing piece of puzzle is how people are addressed. We do have sort of equivalent noun for Miss or Mrs., but how we use it is completely different from the Western context. After I shared my experience of being addressed as Mrs. in Germany in another video, some people also mentioned that the word like Fräulein was used in the past in Germany, but they abolished it because that could cause some issue of discrimination. So these days they don't use that word anymore and it just kind of disappeared from their culture. And these comments actually triggered a small debate. If you're interested, you can check out the link here to see that video. In Hong Kong, we still say something like 小姐, or even in the Hong Kong style, Missy. Like sometimes when you enter a shop, people will address you as Missy. Like Missy, 有咩可以幫到你呀? It's like, Miss, is there anything I can help? It's very common to hear this in the stores, but from my experience, just no one got offended, and me and my friends never talked about it as if that is an issue. So to us, these are not political at all. They are not comments about marital status or assumptions about identities. They are purely polite form of addresses. In Cantonese, there are a lot of funny and mean phrases to insult unmarried women, such as 賣剩蔗, the sugar cane left unsold, 籮底橙, the orange in the bottom of the basket. Equally, we also have other funny and mean phrases to insult men and children, such as 生嚿叉燒好過生你, I'd rather give birth to a barbecue pork than you. This phrase is commonly used by parents to insult children who did not meet their parents' expectations. The funny part is that a lot of them are about food. However, we have to be careful because how we address people is more based on age and how they look like. So if we don't know the age of that lady, we would always say 小姐. If you call that lady a 女士, which is more for middle-aged or old ladies, it's quite an opposite from the Western culture. So if you don't want to offend a woman in Hong Kong, you have to call her 小姐 rather than Mrs. or 女士, which is Miss, in a more neutral form. And for female senior citizens, people might address them as 婆婆, which is literally grandma from the maternal side, but it just sounds like very friendly and warm. And for men, we always just use 先生, like Mr. of course, just more similar to the Western context. And sometimes we might address a male senior citizen as 伯伯, which is similar to 婆婆. 伯伯 is more like elder uncle. Our system is more based on age. Maybe this is from a Confucian hierarchy. I think people in Hong Kong are more upset when they are seen old than being addressed according to their marital status. Apart from that, I also got someone asking me in another video in the comment section, why didn't I call myself as a woman instead of a girl? Is there any reason behind? I think most of the time I'm just not sensitive enough to distinguish them. Whenever it comes to my mind, I would just use that. In fact, I'm not so aware of it because we tend to choose the title more based on age than marital status, and the concept of our age is also different from the Western context. People would just describe 女人 if they see that lady is around like middle age, I think in their 40s or 50s. As a lot of Asians always look very young, you can never tell their age, so it's more safe to address them as 女仔. But for me, I'm in my early 30s, so I'm kind of caught between these. I just didn't bother how I would call myself. So in our culture, it's more like if you call someone 女仔, that means that girl looks youthful. So even some of my clients address me as Mr. Lau because they couldn't distinguish my gender from my name. I just tend to ignore it and find it kind of hilarious, but I never feel offended because I wouldn't let that title define me. Another huge influence was the media I grew up with. Female heroes were everywhere. Like many Hong Kongers in the 90s or early 2000s, I was raised on a lot of Japanese anime. And honestly, looking back when I was a kid, I didn't realize that those shows were female-led. And let me share some with you guys. The first one is Wedding Peach. And I have even seen this anime on Amazon Prime before, and I was quite surprised. There was German dubbing, so I watched a few episodes, but it feels so strange when you watch Japanese anime in German language. And the main character, Momoko, is an average girl, you know, school crushes, and accidentally transforming into a love-powered bridal superhero. As Wedding Peach, she fights evils with the power of romance and in a wedding gown. The evils don't even stand a chance against a girl with friendship and the full wedding attire. And the second one may be more well-known, which is Sailor Moon, is also my favorite. And Sailor Moon, aka Usagi, just wants snacks, sleep. However, Destiny had another plan. Usagi got transformed into Sailor Moon, magical, warrior, moon princess, and the queen of dramatic speeches. With her squad of stylish planet guardians, she battled evils while tripping over her own feet, and still sometimes saves the world. And the third one is Cardcaptor Sakura. So Sakura was just a normal middle school kid, and then one day she accidentally unleashed a stack of magical disaster cards, and then she became the Cardcaptor Sakura, running around the town with her wand and cute costumes, and this tiny winged supervisor who won't stop judging her. Her task is to collect back all the cards. On the contrary, some boys in other anime are portrayed a bit more immature and laid back. For example, Nobita in Doraemon, his life is a mess. He got bad grades and bullies, and Doraemon is this robotic cat from the future who can use the gadgets to fix all the problems for him. Another one, Ojarumaru, is also my favorite. He just looks cute even though he's also very lazy and useless. So growing up with that kind of anime, I didn't see women as less represented. By the way, some time ago I rewatched Sailor Moon and Cardcaptor, and I've realized some LGBT themes in the animes that I have never realized when I was a kid. I'm not sure if that was censored or I just never realized it since I was too small. The last one is a very personal experience. I went to a girls' school during my teenage year. Going to a girls' school shaped my view even more, because in that environment, all student leaders were girls, all club presidents were girls, all top academic performers are also girls, all the sports team captains were also girls. Every day I saw girls being smart, talented, athletic, and confident without needing to prove that they are better than the boys. We also have alumni working as doctors, lawyers, business owners, civil servants, or even a few won Miss Hong Kong. They look pretty and smart as well. From that specific personal story, in my mind, leadership doesn't tie to gender at all. It's more about personality, interest, and effort. Girls in my school were also very diverse. Imagine each grade we have 240 girls. There were more than 1,000 girls in this school. Every day I see them, and they're just so diverse. They can be themselves. Even lesbians were not discriminated, and some tomboys were so admired by her peers as well. With this many girls in the same school, of course there were a lot of small circles, gossips around, but I've never seen serious bullying, but maybe more mild cases. Just like me, I experienced isolation from a specific group, but I was always lucky. I got support from other friends and other big sisters in the school. The pressures were more about academic results, disciplines, and domestic abuse. For the later generations in Hong Kong, students even had to deal with political issues. But in general, I would say we have more pressure from helicopter parenting and strict discipline. If you are curious about East Asian parenting, you can check out this video in which I compare Habenmutter in Germany and Tiger Mom in East Asia. By the way, our school also holds school drama every year. It's a big project for a big group of students. All the male characters were played by female students because we don't have boys in our school. I think that kind of environment also made me less sensitive to the female taboo in the society. For example, I had a very interesting dating story to share. 1 year ago, I had a date with this guy, and we had dinner in a small cozy Vietnamese restaurant. The space between each table was very narrow. Like if we were to pay attention to other people's conversation, we could potentially hear them. So when I got seated and my date asked how I was doing, I was so blunt and honest. Without too much thinking, I just said, I'm fine, but I'm just not feeling the best because of my period. And then his reaction was, shh, other people can hear you. And I was shocked and speechless because I saw the discomfort from period was like a headache or something, a bit of pain but still manageable. I would still define myself as a young woman. Isn't it normal that I still have menstruation? I never got a similar reaction from my ex-boyfriend or even male friends. Therefore, I didn't realize that it's still a taboo here. We cannot talk about it in public. Or maybe it's just for older generations. Have you experienced something similar in Germany? Please let me know in the comments. I'm so curious to know if this is still a taboo. So with all these personal experiences and stories, I didn't develop much instinct to see gender as something that restricts opportunities. I'm also aware that my case might be a bit more exceptional and rare in the Western world, and maybe even Asian world, but it has shaped my mindset and mentality in a very unique way. That's why sometimes my videos can be a bit controversial all, and quite a lot of people don't understand it either. While gender issue is not a big topic comparing to other social topics in Hong Kong, I would say the focus is very different. As a capitalist city, people usually talk more about financial pressure, long working hours, family expectations, and political unrest. Because we don't have a strong safety net there, I'm pretty much aware of the fact that my upbringing was more privileged, at least to the third world countries. It's not perfect because I also got some childhood trauma and other form of pressures. So yeah, that's my story. What about you? Does your mother tongue language consist of genders? How does your upbringing shape your perception on genders? Please let me know in the comments and I will respond. So thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!